Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here. Today's episode is brought to you by Franchise 5. Why Franchise 5? I'm glad you asked. Growing your franchise in a slow, deliberate, and thoughtful manner is a smart way to grow. Franchise 5 helps you do this by expanding 5 locations at a time with a Zen-like focus on the geographic locations that make sense for your growth. To learn more about this, go to franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. That's the number 5. So franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. Now to today's episode. Today, instead of an interview, I'm going to talk a bit about the culture of your franchise. You know, a problem that a lot of franchise systems have is how to grow their system the right way. And so often it's focused on, well, how do I get good franchisees? I can't find good prospects. I can talk to a lot of people, but I can't get them to sign on the dotted line. And certainly that's an issue when you're dealing with franchising. Certainly you need good people to come in as franchisees. But I want to talk today about what are you doing as a franchisor to create a culture that's inviting to other franchisees. I mean, let's take a look inward here as a franchisor and look at what your business is doing to make sure that it creates an environment that other people want to take part of. Well, of course, as I was doing some research into this issue, I stumbled across a coffee franchise that I've talked a bit about in the past. It's called Dutch Bros Coffee, and they're based out of Oregon. I don't know the owner. I don't have any affiliation with them, and I haven't looked into their actual franchise model. But I did stumble across a really interesting article from Forbes titled "The Coffee Cult: How Dutch Bros is Turning Its Broistas into Wealthy Franchisees." So I'd encourage you to take a look at that article again on Forbes. It was from June 2016. But the point of it is that the Dutch Bros Coffee franchise is a system that's now grown upwards of, I believe, 240 franchise locations. And they only sell franchises to employees who work with them for at least 3 years. So they require that if you're going to become a franchisee of Dutch Bros, you will have worked your way in the Dutch Bros system at another location and worked your way through every aspect of the business. I really find this to be interesting, and I really find it to be an effective way to build a culture. The article goes on to interview, a franchisee or two who have worked through their system or worked through their environment. And it talks about how, in particular, there's a person who is a 28-year-old college dropout who owns 5 Dutch Bros drive-through coffee franchises. And just a year ago, now that would have been back in 2015, she was making $35,000 as a regional manager. And now her stores are on track to gross nearly $4 million, leaving her with $230,000 in profit. Now, forget about those numbers. I mean, I think those numbers are interesting, but it goes on to say that she doesn't care about the money. She says, I would work for Trav for free. That's Travis Boersma, the founder of Dutch Bros, the CEO and co-founder of Dutch Bros, because he's created a culture that makes people want to be a part of something as opposed to just buying into something. And I think that that's an important distinction as you look at your own businesses and trying to figure out how you can distinguish yourself, how you can differentiate yourself in a marketplace, in a very, very crowded marketplace. In fact, they've derived terms like the Dutch Mafia to describe sort of the place that it is to work at Dutch Bros Coffee. And they place such a high priority on taking to customers and getting to know them that they treat them like family. Well, they ingrain that type of culture in their employees as they work through the system. And then once they've been there for at least 3 years, 3 years is a long time, really anywhere, but it's certainly a long time at a coffee place. Think about that. Think about the local, Starbucks or whatever local coffee store you go into. how much turnover is there? I mean, how often do you see, the high school kids working there and then they go on to other things in their life? I mean, getting somebody to stay at a coffee place for 3 years is a challenge. But when you position the opportunity from the perspective of really raising the ceiling of opportunity for these individuals, that in and of itself, I think, creates a culture that helps keep people around and helps train people in a way who can then go on and hopefully become successful franchisees. I think that's something for you to think about as you grow your business. What are you doing with your culture? What are you doing with your people that provides incentive for them not only to stick around, but for them to buy in to what you're doing? I mean, what kind of opportunities are you providing to them? What kind of ways are you enriching their experience? And it's not just money. Okay. As this person indicated in this article, she didn't care about the money, although she probably does. But her point was that Travis, the co-founder, had created, along with his team, a culture that really kept her there, irrespective of the money. I mean, I think that's what businesses should strive for. I think that's what franchisors should strive for. And that in and of itself, I think, can help you grow your franchise business. So I would encourage you to take a look. Maybe take a step back from your business, talk to the people in your business, talk to your employees, and think about what kind of long-term opportunities are you providing for your workers? I mean, is it just something where, it's just a job, they're making minimum wage or something slightly more, and that they're going to be there for 6 months and then on to something else? I mean, is that the type of culture that you're trying to create? Maybe it is, and maybe there's a reason for it. But I would encourage you to think long-term. I think so often as business owners, we get stuck in the hamster wheel of, just trying to stay on top of everything that we as entrepreneurs have to do. And we lose sight and lose focus of the bigger picture. Well, I think Dutch Bros is an example of a company that has not done that. Again, I don't know what the franchise opportunity is about, and I don't want this to be seen as some sort of an endorsement of the franchise, because it's not. I've never reviewed their agreements, and I don't know anything about them other than what I've read. But I do think it's an interesting commentary that they've attracted attention, and obviously they've grown their franchise substantially from within. So I would encourage you to think about, instead of just looking for anybody from the outside, from any area to come in and grow your brand, think about a strategy and a process that you can put in place where you can make the offer even more attractive. I mean, the fact remains is we are in a very competitive market space. And if you have a business that is a thriving and replicated business, chances are it's in a competitive market space as well. So you have to look for ways to differentiate yourself. And oftentimes people just think as culture as something that is completely unrelated to growth as a business or to the bottom line. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I think this goes to show, and I've seen it in other businesses as well, that culture has a direct relationship to the bottom line of your business. So instead of just being so tied to the numbers, tied to the expenses, and thinking about your day-to-day, please, if you take one thing from this episode, think about what kind of culture you are cultivating for your team, for your people, and what kind of experiences are they getting, and what kind of opportunities are there at the end of the day. I think if you take the time to think about that, you might be surprised, either in a good or a bad way, but hopefully in a way that inspires you to make changes and implement things that increase and better the opportunities for those around you. Because if you create an environment that creates opportunities for others, I promise you that will create more opportunities for you and your franchise business. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.